Hi everyone, I'm Micheline from Americana Long Arm Quilting. We do custom quilting and long arming, and you can find a link to our website in the description below. Now, on our website, you can also find all the patterns, including the one that we're going to do today. You're going to find all the patterns there. You can get a quote for long arming there. And we also sell some fabric there, and we're adding more fabrics all the time. So check that out. All right. The project we're going to make today is really going to be fun. I saw this on the last Homely House. Kate's mom, who had passed away many years ago, because this was an older one that I was watching, she had Kate had several suitcases of unfinished projects that her mom had started. Her mother was a prolific quilter, and she had many UFOs. So Kate was going through each of these UFOs and showing people what she was going to do with it, how she was going to finish it. And she showed one flimsy or floppy, just the quilt top, that I just fell in love with. And I thought that would make the best scrap quilt. I'm going to make that. So that's what we're going to do today. However, I'm not going to make it with scrap fabric. I've done several scrap fabrics here recently, and just got back from Paducah a little while ago, made that quilt behind me. I hope all of you have seen that one so far. And I have vowed that all the fabric I bought in Paducah, I'm going to use. You know, where we always buy these beautiful layer cakes and things like that, and then we put them away because we want to save them for something really special. Well, every quilt that we make is really special. So I'm going to use one of those layer cakes. I'm going to use this one. Here we go. By Marcus Fabrics. And it is Woof and Warp. That's funny. That's a funny name. And it's got some beautiful blues and greens and these yellows. Just really pretty, kind of muted tones. This is going to be my background. So hopefully, I know it'll show up really well against the greens and the blues. There we go. And I think it'll show up nicely on that yellow too. Now, in the quilt that Kate's mom had done, it was a really high contrast. So mine's going to look a little bit different. By the way, we'll leave a link to that video in the description below too, so you can go back and watch and see Kate's mom's quilt as well. It was gorgeous. This is the block we're going to make. So I just made it out of some scrap fabric. It's going to be so much fun to make. I made this little template, or this little practice one the other day after I watched the video, and I went, I am making that. That is going to be really neat. And it starts with 5-inch squares. So I'm going to be cutting this into 5-inch squares. All right. So come along for the journey. Let's get to sewing. Okay, first things first, I've got my background fabric on the board. We're going to cut it into 5-inch squares, so I'm cutting 5-inch strips. But let me first show you this new rotary cutter I got. This is called True Cut. And let me show you this ruler. This is kind of the brains behind this whole system. Okay, so here's the ruler. I'm going to flip it up this way. You see that ridge right there? How it's got a little ridge there and on this side? This is a 6.5-inch by 24-inch ruler. Why it's got that ridge is it corresponds to this little guy right here that also has a groove. And what you do is you take this and you put the groove on the inside of that lip, and that holds your rotary cutter tight against your ruler as you're cutting, so you don't get any wobbly lines. You don't go a little bit farther out of the ruler than what you need to. So that's really neat. So let me show you how it works. Okay, so we need 5-inch squares. So I'm going to cut some 5-inch strips here. Put my blade down, or actually the blade doesn't come down, the guard comes up. I'm going to hold my ruler. I'm holding with this finger, not my, I'm not pushing down with my thumb. I'm pushing like this. So it just cuts like that, boom, and it just stays right there in that groove, and it just makes for some really wonderful straight cuts, and just as easy as that. Okay, now you put my guard back up. Let's spin these around and we'll cut them into some squares, shall we? I'm going to line that up on a line really nicely. Let's see, about right there. About right there. We'll put this one right there. Okay, so first we need to cut off that line right there. And you don't have to use that, you don't have to use it with the guard. As you can see, I just did it without the guard because I used this side of the blade, just because I didn't want to walk around the table. Okay, I moved my piece of fabric. Get him back in line. All right, now we'll put that back on 5 inches. Like so. Okay, put my rotary cutter in that groove. All right, and there is a perfect little 5 inches. Let's get a couple more of these done. Okay, here we go. We're gonna need a lot of these, but I'm just gonna show you a few. Because I really wanted to show you my new rotary cutter. I'd been asking so many of you for so long what rotary cutter you use. I'll open those up in a little while and cut a 5-inch piece out of that. I've been asking so many of you for so long, what rotary cutter do you use? What rotary cutter do you use? And you all came back with many, many wonderful ideas. So there you go. All right, let's cut some of these squares. Let's see here. Get them all lined up nice. Okay. That looks good. Looks like the inner peaks are what we need to go by. And I think I'm going to go put it on that line right there. Okay. Alrighty, there we go. And let's do that one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's put it on that line right there. Like so. Okay. There we go. Okay. Now, we've got those cut. Those are going to be mostly for my outside squares. That's these. But I need some smaller ones too. So I'm going to reserve that for those. And I will probably cut them in quarters. So we'll have enough to do all of that. All right. Let me go ahead and finish cutting up this layer cake, and we'll get to sewing it together. All right, now the fun part, the sewing. I've got my 5-inch squares of my layer cake. I'm going to set them right over here to this side of me. And I've got my 5-inch squares of my background fabric, and I have drawn a line down the center from corner to corner diagonally on each one of these. Now I'm just going to take one of these guys, line it up nice and carefully. We are going to be trimming these down, so if it's not absolutely perfect, that's okay. What we're doing right now is making a half square triangle. So I am going to sew a scant 1/4 inch on either side of that line, and then I'm going to cut it on that line, okay? So here we go. There we go. Now, I would
just keep going with all those. That's a lot. You don't need to see me do all that. Okay, so now I've got it sewn on one side. I'm going to just flip that around and go to sewing it on the other side. There we go. That's all there is to it. Let me get a few more done, and then we will go to cutting these and trimming them down.
All right, next thing is to cut these right down the center. Helps if you retract your blade or put your blade out. Now I'm using my new rotary cutter, but I'm just using it with a regular ruler, and it works just fine. So that's what I'm going to do with all of these. Okay. So I'm just going to get a few of them ready to go here. And then I'll show you what happens next. All right, that's a few done. Let me show you the next step. I've pressed all of these, and I pressed them to the layer cake fabric, not towards the background. Another thing I bought in Paducah was a block lock ruler, and I'm so excited to use it. Okay, so let me see here. I want this to be 4.5 inches finished, so I'm just going to take a little bit off of here. There you go. And I'm trying to use my spinning mat. This mat is just really not a very good spinning mat. So, but now the way I understand this is now I just bring this down here to where it says 4.5, and I can get these other two sides like so. Ooh, that's so nifty. So I'm going to go through and do all of those. And then I'm going to get back to sewing the rest of them. Let me show you that one more time. So I'm going to put it on here. So that locks against the diagonal seam. Oh, that's just so much handier than the way I was doing it. Rotate my mat. I have a new mat on order, and I'm really excited about getting it. Hopefully it'll be a lot better than this one, huh? Okay. Looks like I'm pretty consistently just having to do 3 sides. So not cutting a lot of this off, just a tiny little bit. So you do want to be careful when you're sewing these to begin with that you are not doing a great big seam, okay? You want a scant 1/4 inch seam. That way you'll be able to have a little bit to trim off. Okay? That makes it really, really easy. I think that block lock ruler was a really wonderful purchase. There we go. All right, let me get to that. Well, it's official. I am in love with the block lock ruler. That made getting all of these squared down to 4.5 inches amazing. I also took the time to square up all my 2.5s because when I took the 5-inch square, essentially that third and part of the second, no, the fourth and part of the third 5-inch square that I made out of the layer cake. When I took that and cut it in half, some looked a little bit bigger than others to me. And when I put them on my new rotary mat, you know what I'm saying, my new Lazy Susan mat, this one is much better than my old one. Love that. When I put it on there to get a reading on it, they weren't all 2.5 inches. So I took the time to go and cut those down to size 2. Now what we're going to do is we're going to essentially snowball a corner. Okay, so I've got a color on here. This happens to be green. I am trying to make sure that the color I'm going to put in this corner is not the same that's in this corner. And then I am going to just sew straight down that, not completely down the center from one diagonal to the other, from one point to the other. I want to come just to this side a little bit. And the reason for that is when you fold your fabric over, that takes up a little bit of room. And so if you sew it right on that diagonal, you're going to be a little bit shy of meeting the corner. Okay, so we're going to go just to that side of it. Now, I'm not drawing a line because this is a small piece of fabric. I've got a cute little sticker here that has my center point. And between there and there, I should be good. So I'm going to line this end up. I'm going to line this end up on my sticker, and I'm going to line that end up with my needle. And again, just over a little bit. Okay. Oh, let me see if I got a, let me back tack because that was a little bit larger stitch. I don't know what I was doing before I went sewing this. Okay, and now I'm just going to get another one, and again I'm going to get a different color than what was on here, than what is on here. Okay, and then I'm just going to put that right there, let the needle grab it, make sure it's off center just a tiny bit. And go to town. Let's do a green one. I'm trying to get several different ones sewn for you so that then I can put it together in a 4-patch. And then we'll get it up on the design wall. But I feel like putting them together in a 4-patch first will make the process go a little bit easier when you put it on the design wall. Okay, let's do one more. Let's do this guy and this guy here. Okay. And this is going to be a little bit scrappy, so I'm just going to have to be at peace with having a couple of blues and things like that. Okay, trim that off. Get these trimmed apart. Let's get that long piece off of there. Okay, so now when I turn that over, you can see it fits really nicely. Okay, let's set our seams. Oh, come over here, you guys. All right, set all those seams, and now I'm going to press them open. And so far, they're all looking really nice. Okay. Perfect. Get my long scissors here, and then we're just going to turn that back and trim out that piece right there. Set that guy there. Like so. One of the reasons I wanted to trim down these 2.5-inch squares is so they'll meet nicely in the center. So let's see how we did. Okay. So I'm going to put that one there. And since I've got this other yellow one, I think I'm going to put him like that. I'm going to have 2 blue center ones together. So I'm just not going to be able to be that picky. I'm just going to have to live with the fact that we've got some colors repeated in it, and that's okay. All right, so now let's see how well we matched that. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. So I've got that top piece caught. We'll go right down, and then let's do these two. Whoopsies. I wanted to run away from me. Okay. There we go. Now I've got it caught up there. I'm going to make sure, because the seams aren't nesting, it is a little bit more tedious to get them to come together. But that's not that big of a deal. Okay, let's see how we did there. Here we are. A little bit off, but not bad. I can live with that. I can live, that one looks really good. Now, so this one, let's press that way. Okay, and this one we'll press thusly. And that way we can at least nest the two in the center, okay? And then we're going to do these sides just like we did the ones we just finished. Oh, put that down. So now I want to get those two to match up as good as I possibly can. Okay. And get that center to match. Okay, once I'm through the center, get the next set to match. And then make sure that end is matching. Okay. Let's see how we did. Very, very nice. Okay, let me get that pressed. Let's see here. I think I'm going to do that twirly thing in the center by, where's my little nippers? Hello, little nippers, where are you? There. Okay, I'm going to take a nip off that piece that was holding those two together, and then I'm going to just pop a couple of these stitches in the center so that we can twirl that seam in the middle. Let's see here. You see how I've twirled the seam in the middle? That will help reduce bulk. Okay. Oops, then I press it the wrong way. A lot of good that did. Okay. All right. Now let me press this one the right way. Okay. That's very cute. Very, very cute. Okay. All right. Didn't that turn out adorable? Oh, I can't wait to get these in a great big quilt. Let me get to sewing a whole bunch more like this. And then we'll get it put up on the design wall. Well, I wish I could say it is going to be just a lazy Sunday morning where I get to sew all these together into a 4-patch. But it's not a lazy Sunday morning. I have got a lot of sewing that I need to get done and things that I need to get done for my drapery workroom. I've got a really busy week next week, and so there are some things that I absolutely have to get done today. But I thought a lot about this block overnight and about the pressing scheme on the back of it. And I realized that these blocks are going to be sewn to one another, so they are not going to have sashing between them. So if I leave this amount of bulk right here, okay, so there's this seam, and then this seam. I think that might be a little bit too much when you get another one just like it on top of it. And there'd be no way for me to make sure that that seam that I've pressed that way is going to meet up with another seam that is pressed that way. So I think I'm going to take a little bit more time this morning, and we're going to go back over how I put this together. So I've picked 4 pieces and I made sure that there was plenty of coverage. I just turned it over, made sure that my coverage was good, and then I trimmed that away. I haven't pressed that, okay? And I think what I'm going to do is then, so I'll do that to all of them. And then I'm going to pick 4, like I picked these 4 here, to go together. And then knowing that these 2 are going to be opposite, well, they can go that way. But these, they can be pressed towards the snowball. But these will need to be pressed thusly, okay? They'll need to be pressed like that. Now, I can go along and do this just with my finger before pressing, before I sew. I can just finger press them, and that'd be fine. Nothing wrong with that. Or I can do it at here. Now, the problem comes with this seam right here that we've already pressed towards the dark. That's not going to line up when we put these 2 together. They are not going to nest. You see how they're both going in the same direction? So, to alleviate that problem, these 2 that are facing each other, I'm going to leave like that. This one, I'm going to go ahead and repress it towards the background fabric. All right, so I'm going to do that, and then when I come back, we'll get it sewn and see how that looks. All right, I've done one. Let's do this other one. I think this is going to work a lot better. It's easier to sew because they're nesting so beautifully. Okay. Get these 2 nested. There we go. And there we go. And pull that off. And now we can leave that stitch in between them because we're not gonna pinwheel the sides. And now I'm just going to press these in different directions just with my finger. So I press that one that way. I'm going to press this one this way. Okay. And when I say press, I'm just kind of mashing. I'm not trying to pull it out of order, okay, or out of square. All right. Now I'm nesting those 2 seams. Can you see those 2 seams that are about to be nested? They are. Put my leader back in. So I've made sure that that one nested. Now I'm going to go to the next one and make sure it is nesting. Now I'm going to go to my center seam and make sure that it's nesting. And then the next seam, make sure he's nesting. All right. Let's get that leader off of there and take a look at how we did. Lovely. I'm very happy with all of that. Okay. Now we're going to go to the machine, to the iron. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to press all of these seams open. Darn it, I meant to press that one open too. Well, fiddles. You know what we're going to do? I'm just going to make, and I won't make this mistake again. You know, I was like, oh, I'm going to press that to one side or the other. I should have pressed it open. But that's okay. This one will just be a little bit difficult in the center there. So, you see what I did? Let me get up here. See what I did right here? I just made a clip there so that I can press that open. And then I will also press this one open. And I need to trim that little thread right there. And then I'll trim. Then I'll press that open as well. Okay, let's do that together. Okay, so I like how all my triangles are laying in the different directions, so that's very nice. But We just needed to fix these center seams, and I think we've got a better pressing scheme now that will make this block lay nice and flat. Sometimes you just have to rethink things, right? Okay, this last one here. There we go. So from now on, I'll make sure that I press these 2 little seams open before I move forward. Okay. There we go. Now I've got them all kind of pressed down. Now I'm going to flip it over to the front, and this is where a little bit of spray starch would be a good, this would be a good time to use a little bit of spray starch. And I'm not running my iron, like dragging it. I am picking it up and setting it down, because there's a lot of bias. This is bias. This is bias on everything. This now is bias. Okay. There we go. There. That turned into a really beautiful little block. And now, because we've taken the time to think through our seams placement on the back, this is going to be a lot easier to sew together to another block. Nope, can't do it that way. Let's see. Can we do it that way? We could do it that way. Yeah, this is going to be really beautiful. Okay. Well, like I said, I don't have a lot of time for this project today, but I wanted to make sure while I was thinking about it, I showed you a better plan on the pressing. So now on to drapery work. All right, so I got all those pieces done. I got it up on the wall. I thought initially I was going to have enough to make it a great big square and do, what would that have been, 7 by 7? But I was 1 block short of doing that. So it's a little bit narrow and a little bit long, but I have a plan for that. Every time I made one of these snowballed corners, I saved and sewed together the piece that I cut off, and I sewed them into 1/4 square triangles, this unit right here. And then when I got them all sewed into 1/4 square triangles, I made a big long strip out of them. What I'm going to do, and I had planned to do a border all along. This is the background fabric. So I'm going to do a border all the way around, top, bottom, and the sides. But on the sides, I'm also going to add a strip of this. That will make the sides just ever so slightly wider than they are now. And I think that's going to be a better proportion. So what do I do next? The next thing I'm going to do is sew each one of these rows together. Now, I'm a bit dyslexic, so I have a really hard time picking that row up, taking it to the sewing machine, and not getting it completely turned around. And it took me a long time up here on the design wall to make sure that I didn't have 2 greens together right next to each other, okay? So I might even use a little sticker that says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to make sure that I'm getting them all lined up and in the right order. I'm going to pick up 1 row, take it to the machine, sew it, bring it back. Pick up another row, take it over there, sew it, and bring it back. And once I get it all sewn together, then it'll be time to put those borders on. We'll get it on Eleanor, and we'll get it long-armed. Okay, so first things first, I got it all done, but I wanted to bring you close up so you could see these little half square triangles that I added to the sides. Now, I just added them to the sides to make it a little bit wider because I thought it was a little bit out of proportion. How did I get these little half square triangles? Well, for every time that I snowballed one of these corners, I took the other part that I cut off and I sewed those together, and then I added them to another one, and then I turned every other one so that I've got these hourglasses going this way, then this way, then this way, then this way. And I think that turned out really good. Let me back this camera up so you can see the whole quilt now. Okay, well, here's our beautiful quilt that was an homage to Kate from the last homely house. It was an homage to her mother. I saw this quilt on her channel, so I hope she gets a chance to see this, and I hope she likes it. It was really fun to make. Ended up 55.5 by 68, and as I mentioned before, I added these little quarter square triangles to either side and not to the top and the bottom because I felt like it was a little bit out of proportion. It was a little bit narrow and long, so I corrected that. I quilted it with a pattern called Whirlwind, which is a lot of fun. And you know me, I don't like to leave any block unused, right? And I had a little bit more of these quarter square triangles, so I put it on the back. Isn't that fun? I just cut a corner off of the backing fabric and I put that in there, and I just think that turned out so adorable. I love it. Again, if you'd like to work this pattern, it is on our website, and that is Americana Long Arm Quilting. Now, if you liked what we did today, please like, share, and subscribe. Do all the things that make that algorithm sing. And until next time, stay quilting.